What's your name?
Edna West McDonald.
Where do you live now?
26 Fairview Avenue, Randolph, Massachusetts.
And what year did you graduate from here?
1931.
Great. What street did you live on?
In Sharon, I lived at Crescent Ridge Dairy, but my cousin owned and the parish family bought in 32.
What schools did you go to in Sharon?
Just Sharon High School.
Who are some of your friends? Are you sitting with them?
Yes, Helen Dodge Logan, Marion Morse. Let's see, I had other friends, but they're the best.
Marion Moss Burial. My present address, 625 Bay Road, Sharon. I graduated in 1930. I grew up in Sharon, right there. I attended the High Street School, I don't know what the elementary school name was now, and then no, I didn't go to Pleasant Street, and then the high school, the old high school building, and then we came over to the Charles R. Wilbur.
Right. Yeah. What street did you grow up on? What street did you grow up on?
Bay Road. I live there now.
Oh, you do?
I still live in the same street and the same address.
What's your name?
John Uran, U-R-A-N-N.
When did you graduate from Sharon High School?
In 1931.
Great. And what street did you live on?
Pleasant Street.
Oh, I'm your neighbor.
Could I have everyone's attention, please?
I've lived in 24 Pleasant
Can everybody hear me in this room? We have to start to get settled in now because we have
What schools did you go to in Sharon?
an opportunity
I
now
went to
have all our
Mrs. Curtis's
photos
kindergarten. I went to
taken.
the
I'd like to, announce
High
as we
Street
get
School.
settled down.
I went to
We have a
the
photographer up here
old high
behind
school
the DJ.
and the other high
first
school
photo
on
that
Main
we're
Street,
going to take
and probably another school that I can't think of.
the classes of
And where do you live now?
In Duxbury, Massachusetts.
And you went to Sharon schools?
Yes, I did.
And where did you grow up in Sharon?
Norwood Street.
Great. Have you been back here often?
Oh, I come occasionally.
And what are the things that you've noticed the most that's changed here?
Well, it's grown a lot. Grown a great deal.
What do you think of the reunion?
Well, I got talked into it. So, I'm glad I came.
Great. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Philomena Mora.
Where do you live now?
I live in Providence, Rhode Island.
And where'd you grow up in Sharon?
I grew up at One Square, Bendinelli Store. That's where I grew up.
And do you come back here often?
None for you. Not that often, but I came to the last reunion, which was nice too. I enjoyed it, right?
Some of your friends growing up with you.
Oh, growing up with me, Becky, Florence Ullman, I'm trying to think of Mary Fitzpatrick, Louise Hayes. Oh, I'm trying to think of that awful. So many. Florence, yeah, I said Florence. I said Becky. Yeah, I said Becky.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Enjoy the reunion.
Thank you.
Hi.
Paul.
Do you want to talk? Yeah. Do you want to speak?
I think everybody's, you don't need me to speak, do you?
Sure we do.
What do you
Just
want to
tell
know?
us your name and
Becky
where you
Callahan
live. And where do you live?
in Sharon,
You live what street do you live on?
in Norwood Street, and I've lived there all my life.
You have. Isn't that wonderful? That's great.
This is my bad ear.
Okay, I'll go this way. Well, enjoy your reunion. What year did you?
1936.
1936?
Uh-huh.
Thanks.
No, I'm with my
She's not a member of the.
Hi.
She's not a member of the class of 1936.
Can you tell us your name?
Richard Newton,
And what class did you graduate in?
1936,
And where did you grow up?
in Sharon. Oh, you mean where in Sharon?
Yeah, what street?
2 Summer Street.
Oh, great.
That's down by Cottage Street,
Where do
Tolman
you live
Street.
now?
Walpole, right across the highway from
So
Sharon.
you come back often to visit them?
Yes. In fact, I was over there today all day.
See a lot of your old friends.
No, they're no old friends. I never see anybody. I don't know anybody in Sharon anymore.
Well, enjoy the reunion. Thanks. Hi. Can you tell us your name, please, and the year you graduated?
Arthur Vidala, 1936.
Where did you grow up?
Where did I grow up? Many places.
No, in Sharon.
Sharon. Well, I guess right there in the center of the town. I lived up, it was 11 Building Street at the time. I don't know what it is today.
Where do you live now?
Oldbrook.
Do you come back here often?
Once every 10 years, probably.
So it's a nice reunion then.
Yes, it is.
Enjoy yourself. Bye-bye.
Mary Sullivan, is that better? Now, what am I supposed to say?
I'm sorry.
Now, what am I supposed to do?
I didn't hear you. What year of school did you graduate in?
What year? 1940.
Where did you grow up? In Sharon?
In Sharon, yeah.
Yes. What street did you grow up on?
Bradford Avenue. And I'm still on Bradford
Are you
Avenue.
in touch with a lot of your friends?
All alive, yep. Yeah, I hear from a lot of them.
Enjoy the reunion.
Thank you very much.
What'd you say?
Your name?
What are you doing? Where do you live? Hi, can you tell us your name? You can look at the camera. You don't have to look at me. Sorry.
You want to know my name?
Uh-huh.
Helen Hodgson Jasperson.
And what year did you graduate in?
40,
1940?
Yeah.
What street did you grow up in, Sharon?
South Main Street.
And
Yeah.
where do you live now?
Outside of Philadelphia.
Do you come back here often?
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
And
I
I
noticed a lot of changes then over the years.
and I have a antique and collectible shop.
And a what?
Antique and collectible
Oh,
shop.
wonderful.
Yeah,
That's
I
great.
do that.
Well, enjoy the reunion.
I
Thank
will.
you so much. Hi.
Hi.
Don't look at me, all right?
Okay, I won't look at you at all.
Here, you can take this.
Okay.
Thanks. Can
Fine.
you tell us your name, please?
Bill Buckley
And where do you live now?
in Easton.
And where did you grow up in Sharon?
Yes, on Harding Street,
What year did you graduate in?
1940.
1940.
Yeah.
So you still keep in touch with a lot of your old friends?
One or two.
So this is a wonderful occasion
It
then.
certainly is. Yes, it
Well,
is very
enjoy your
nice.
evening.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Are any of you other Sharon High graduates? Okay, don't look at me, all right?
Okay, I won't.
Can you tell us your name, please?
Warren Boyce,
And what year did you graduate in?
1940.
And where do you live now?
Live in Fairfield Glade, Tennessee.
So do you come back to visit often?
Once every 35 years or so.
Oh, so you've noticed a lot of changes then.
Very many changes, yes.
That's great. So you're having a nice time with all your old friends.
Enjoying it very much, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Class of 1934, 35, and 1936. Classes of 34, 35, and 36. If you would please come up here behind the DJ right here.
You can look up there.
Okay.
Your photo.
Can you tell us your name, please?
Yes, Marilyn Boyce Burgess, class of 1940,
Great. And where do you live now?
Manchester, New Hampshire.
And where did you grow up in Sharon?
658 South Main Street on the Foxborough border. Yeah.
Do you come back often?
No, I don't like so much traffic. Well, we were here in 82.
Well, enjoy the reunion. Thank you so much. Hi. Am I missing anyone else? Who else am I? Yes? Here? Hi. Come on, I ask you a couple of questions and you can look right at the camera, okay?
What did I do?
I'll ask you the questions, but you just
Very
look right
well,
at the camera.
yeah.
Thank you. Can you tell us your name, please?
J. King,
And what year did you graduate in?
40. And I am proud of one thing. I didn't vote for Clinton.
What street did you grow up on?
What?
What street did you grow up on?
Oh, on
Sharon?
Depot Street
Uh-huh. And where do you live now?
in Syracuse, New York.
Great. Congratulations. Thank you.
My married name or a maiden
Your
name?
maiden name?
Kay Boyden,
And what year did you graduate?
1941,
Where do you live now?
in Waterbury, Connecticut,
And where did you live growing up in Sharon?
on Ames Street.
So did you come back often to visit?
Yes.
Congratulations. We hope you enjoy your reunion.
Thank you very much.
Can you tell us your name and the year you graduated?
1941, Virginia Eldrick Boyd.
Okay. And where did you grow up in Sharon?
I was born in Sharon. I lived in Ames Street, and I lived there for the first 30 years of my life.
Oh, great. And where do you live now?
In Westwood.
In Westwood? Do you come back often?
No, I don't. I have no relatives left in Sharon, so there's nothing to bring me back there.
Well, we hope you enjoy your reunion. Thank you. Hi.
Your turn.
That's not my name anymore. I've changed my name. My name is Pat. And that came from Fitzpatrick, okay?
Okay.
Once I got to Arizona, that was it. I didn't go in the nunnery, so here I am.
What year did you graduate from high school?
Hold on. 1941.
And where do you live now?
I live in Plymouth, Mass, America's hometown.
Do you come back often to visit?
No, but
So
I might.
You've noticed a lot of changes over the years.
No, I'm looking at some of the men that are available. Here he is, right here.
Good for you.
Come here with me and just stand off to the side. We'll have you in there for the next photo. Class of 37.
Hi. Can you tell us your name, please?
Harold Paul,
And what year did you graduate in?
1941.
And where do you live now?
I live in Walpole,
And what street did you live on growing up in Sharon?
South Pleasant Street.
Have you noticed a lot of the changes?
Oh, Sharon has really grown since we moved into Sharon. It was a small town.
Well, having a nice time with meeting old friends.
Oh, it's always fun.
Yeah. Congratulations. Have a
Thank
good
you,
evening.
Deb. Thank you. She didn't ask me to marry her. I was hoping.
Can you tell us your name, please?
Clara Nethal,
Hi. And where do you live now?
North Attleboro, Mass.
And what street did you grow up in Sharon?
South Main Street,
And what year did you graduate?
1941.
So do you come back here often?
Fairly often, yes.
Well, enjoy your evening. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
My turn? Hi.
Just look at the camera.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you give us your name?
Yeah, the name is Richard Whitney, and I live in Roanoke, Virginia at the present time. Graduated in 1941. I spent 12 years in schools in Sharon. My favorite teachers, Dorothy Chase and Doris Newton. As far as friends, I think everyone in my class were my friends. My wife's not with me.
I hope you enjoy your reunion. Thank you. Can you tell us your name?
Sylvia Markel,
What year did you graduate in?
1940.
And where do you live now?
I live in Falmouth, Mass now.
Do you come back often to visit?
Well, I come back to the neighborhood because my brother lives in Walpole.
What's the best thing that you remember growing up in Sharon?
Oh, it was a wonderful place to grow up. No factories, no anything like that. A beautiful town. And you knew everybody.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Peg Healy.
And what year did you graduate from?
In 1931.
And where do you live now?
I live in Florida in the winter, and I spend my summers in Mattapoisett, Mass.
Do you come back often to Sharon?
Occasionally I do, because I still have sister-in-law and I have a nephew that lives there.
What's the best thing that you remember about living here, growing up?
Oh, I loved it because it was a small town when I grew up. We knew everybody, and there was a lot of fun. We, made our own fun in those days.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the reunion.
Thank you.
Can you tell me your name, please?
My name is Blanche Derry Fredericks, and I lived in 1931, I graduated.
And where did you grow up in Sharon?
I grew up in Sharon until I got married.
And
Where
do you live now?
I live in Stoughton.
So you come back often to this area?
Well, my husband was a builder, and he built a house there for us in Stoughton.
So what are the best things that you remember growing up in Sharon?
Oh, Sharon Lake, swimming, riding bicycles, taking walks up to Moose Hill, and things like that. It's changed, though, now. You don't even know it's Sharon.
Thank you so much.
That's
Enjoy
it.
your reunion.
Okay.
Hi. Would you mind answering a couple of questions? Great.
I'll do my best.
I'm sure you will. Just look at the camera, all right, instead of me, and I'll ask you. Can you tell me your name?
B.B. Rafter Richards.
And what year did you graduate?
32.
And where did you grow up in Sharon?
Sharon Square.
And where do you live now?
I live in Duxbury, Massachusetts.
And so do you come back often?
Not very often, no.
So the town has probably changed.
It has changed tremendously. It's amazing to see the building that's gone on.
Great. Who were your favorite teachers growing up?
Well, actually, in high school, it was Enos Held and Dorothy Chase and
Mrs. White.
Yeah, Mrs. White, but also Harold Clark.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Vendinelli?
Yes, dear.
Can we film you? Yeah. Can we film you?
Okay.
Great. Just look at the camera, okay? I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Not hard ones.
What?
Not hard ones.
No. Want to hold this? All right, thanks. Can you tell us your name?
Elo
Although you're
Bendinelli.
pretty famous, probably everybody knows you.
Yeah. What else?
What?
Did I say?
Just tell us your name.
Oh.
All right.
Elo Bendinelli,
And what year did you graduate in?
1933.
And how long did you have this store in the center?
We were there for 65 years.
What are the best things that you remember about growing up in Sharon?
Just growing up.
And knowing everybody? You're visiting with your friends tonight.
Exactly.
Thank you so much,
Thank,
Mr. Vinton.
thank you.
Have a great reunion. Did we get her? Hi, did we interview before? I think we missed you.
You missed me.
I did. No, I'm gonna miss you. Just look at the camera.
Yes.
Can you tell me your name?
Helen Logan.
And what year did you graduate in?
1933.
Where do you live now?
Nova Scotia. Yes.
And
in the Annapolis Valley.
Oh, wow. What street did you grow up in, Sharon?
Down on Main Street on Harris Farm.
Do you come back here often?
About once a year. I think this will be my last driving trip.
So you've noticed a lot of changes over the years?
Oh, yes, yes.
What do you remember about growing up in Sharon that was the best thing?
It was wonderful. There was no crime, you know, you could go out if you wanted. Be free.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your time
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks. Okay, she's not.
All right.
Okay. Can you tell me your name, please?
Marion Healy, and I was Miss Allen when I taught first in Sharon. And when I retired, I was Mrs. Healy.
What year did you graduate?
I didn't graduate. I'm on with the faculty. I'm a guest.
So you taught for how many years in Sharon?
Oh, so many I can't count them. Almost 40, I guess.
What schools did you teach at?
I taught at the old high school, and then when the Cottage Street School opened, I went there. That was in 1950, right? Yes.
What's the best thing about that you remember coming to Sharon through the years?
Well, I've been here so long. In fact, I was married after I got here, and I have a daughter, and they were very pleasant years.
Yes, congratulations. Enjoy the reunion.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mrs. Tressinger?
Oh, no, I'm Alice Gonzalez.
I'm sorry.
Hi.
Sorry, Mrs. Gonzalez.
Hi,
I always do that.
Hi,
for some
Jody.
reason.
Right.
Can I ask you some questions and you can...
Well, we'll try.
Here,
No?
hold the microphone. Just
Okay.
don't look at me, all right?
Okay.
Just look at the
Look at
camera.
Alan, huh? I still call him Alan.
Can you say your name, please, and where you live?
Alice Consavage, and I live on 11 Huntington Avenue in Sharon.
And you
still
were a teacher for many years in the school.
in the first grade, right?
And so was your husband for many
And
years.
my Bill coached basketball and also taught shop and eventually became a counselor. Yeah,
So
for
how
the
many
Sharon.
years have you lived here?
All since 1946.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
The schools
thank you.
really miss you.
Anita Keys Clavo.
And did you grow up in Sharon and graduate from high school in Sharon?
No, I taught school here.
I thought that I recognized you. Can you tell me where you live?
Where I live now, I live in Ponte Vedra, Florida.
And where did you live in Sharon?
On 18 Huntington Avenue.
And how long did you teach in Sharon?
Oh, about 20 years.
Congratulations. I hope you're enjoying your reunion.
Well, thank
you.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
Can you tell us your name, please?
I'm Barbara Burns.
And can you tell us what subject you taught?
I taught social studies, and I came to Sharon in the September of 1945, right after the war was over.
So you have a lot of students here.
I have a lot of students. One of my students is on my right now, and he tells me he's going to be the master of ceremonies tonight. And I hear his son on television every night, and so I said, how many Joanne Rastinos are there in this world?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Jody. How are you?
Good. How
Good.
are you?
Yeah.
Looking handsome.
Thank you.
Just don't look at me.
All right. Sure. I will.
Can you tell us your name, please?
Joe Amorosino, class of 1957.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in, in Sharon most of my life, but I grew up in Dorchester before that.
What street did you live on?
Massapog Ave in Sharon.
Where do you live now?
I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on Lauderdale Beach.
What's the best thing that you remember about growing up in Sharon?
The wonderful school system, where I got my good basic foundation, and great teachers like Barbara Burns right here. Okay, I'm proud of the education that I got in Sharon.
When was the last time you were back here?
13 years ago, when I was master of ceremonies for this same affair.
So it's changed a lot over the years.
Well, it has, of course.
What's the best thing that you remember?
The best thing that I remember was how clean the town of Sharon was. After growing up in the city, to be able to come out to the country and live was such a great opportunity. The schools, as I mentioned, but I love my sports. I played all sports here at Sharon High School, which gave me a good impetus to play on in college.
Enjoy your reunion.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here.
Ask over here. Can you tell us your name, please?
Astrid Fernstrom Pierce.
And what year did you graduate?
And I graduated in 1925.
Where do you live now?
And I'm still living in Sharon.
Uh-huh. What street do you live on?
I'm on Hickson Farm Road, the houses for the elderly.
Where did you grow up?
And I grew up in Sweden, Cambridge, Dorchester.
I meant what house in Sharon? What street did you grow
Bay
up
Road.
on? In Bay Road? Yeah.
But I only came here for the high school. We weren't here when we grammar school.
Oh, that's great. What do you remember best about growing up here?
Well, I didn't really grow up in Sharon. I grew up in various other countries and cities because my mother traveled back and forth between Sweden and America. So I've lived in, I don't know how many towns.
Are you lucky?
But Sharon, I had, two friends that I had to take care of practically all their life, Doris and Dorothy Barbelli. And Edmund's here. I met Edmund, really. He's here.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the reunion. Thank you. Can you tell us your name, please?
Esther Derry Sundell.
And what year did you graduate in? And where did you grow up? What street?
Sharon.
What street did you grow up on?
I grew up on Washington Place. Washington Place.
And where do you live now?
Needham. My daughter here next to me.
Are you enjoying the reunion, seeing old friends?
Yes, very much.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Sharon Homecoming Reunion Committee who couldn't find her gavel and used a hammer instead. So what we have for her is a real live gavel for Shirley. Are the people down there in the back, can you hear me? We're giving Shirley, can you turn it up just a little bit? They can't hear down in the back. We have a gavel here for Shirley, so in future meetings of any sort, Shirley, instead of the hammer, you can use this gavel. So that's for Shirley. Also at the same time, okay, no one can hear me at the other end. They're coming up here. If we could quiet the people down at the other end, maybe that might help, because we have the volume turned up quite a bit. At this time, I would also like to present to Shirley these flowers for her hard work, did an outstanding job. Shirley worked very hard with her committee. This was not an easy task. So let's have a nice round of applause for Shirley. All right, at this time I'd like Janet Fleming Haynes and Eleanor Maria Graves to come up. Okay? Janet Fleming Haynes and Eleanor Maria Graves. Would you please come forward? Two members of the committee. Here they come.
And class of 50 was the quietest class though.
No, they weren't the quietest class. Now, I hear different, okay?
Ask my teachers.
Eleanor, for your hard work on the committee, we also have a bouquet of flowers for you.
Thank you very much.
Eleanor, for her hard work. And Janet, the same, for your hard work on the committee. Some flowers for you. So nice to see you. Look great. Okay.
Eleanor was the treasurer.
Eleanor was the treasurer. We didn't know if she was going to be here tonight. Eleanor Graves is the treasurer, and there was some speculation that she left town early this morning. But lo and behold, she's here in the living flesh right here. I can attest to that. And Janet was the secretary with those copious notes. So that's good. We're very happy that you people are here. And I also was told that the minutes to the meeting were always seconded by Donnie Phelps. Is that true? So Donnie, you can stand up and just wave back there. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we can resume.
Can you tell us your name?
Lena Bonasheri Earl.
And what year did you graduate in?
1930.
What street did you grow up on?
What?
What street did you grow up on?
Washington Place. 6 Washington Place.
And you live in Sharon now?
Yes.
Did you ever live away from Sharon?
Just for a short time in Arlington when they had eliminated the midnight train. My father worked nights.
Look at the hero.
You want to talk? You want to talk to me? I want to talk to you.
Growing up?
What is that?
Who were your friends growing up?
What are my friends?
Who were your friends growing up?
Muriel Hassam, Edna Gerald, Rita Lang, and now Marguerite Keating.
What schools did you go to in Sharon?
Charles R. Wilbur and the Gray School. What would you call that? That was our high school.
Pleasant Street School?
Pleasant Street,
right.
Yeah.
What are the best things that you remember growing up in Sharon?
My basketball team. I was captain.
That's great.
Do we know you?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You know her? Okay. Can you tell me your name, please?
Ned Savage
And where do you live now?
in Encino, a suburb of Los Angeles.
So you've come a long way.
Yes, we did.
Do you come back to Sharon often?
No, we used to, but we don't travel very good anymore.
Where did you grow up in Sharon?
28 South Main Street.
What class did you graduate in?
In 29 from high school, and I graduated there from grammar school and nursery school.
Who were your favorite teachers then? And some of your friends?
Well, I think my favorite teacher was the guy that did the singing and put on the plays and acting and things. His name was what? Enos Held.
And who were from some of your friends growing up?
Can't remember very many of them.
What's the best thing that you remember about growing up in Sharon?
Oh, it was such a quiet place. You could walk anywhere, run around, ride the freight trains when they were slow going up the steep hill in Sharon, listening to them on a cold winter's night because we slept out in the sleeping porch to spin their wheels when it was too steep for the freight trains. And working on my uncle's farm, Dr. Walter Griffin.
All right, yes. Well, thank you so much. We're so happy that you traveled all this way.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I'll try.
Don't look at me, okay?
All right.
Can you tell me your name?
Sarah.
I was Sam's boyfriend all like growing up.
My name is Sarah Mortensen Forrest.
And what class did you graduate in?
I can't hear you, dear.
What class did you graduate in?
In 1929.
Where did you grow up in Sharon?
I grew up in Sharon. I was born in Sharon.
What street did you grow up in?
I was born on Main Street.
Where do you live now?
I live in Weston and California.
So you travel back here often?
I bet 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, 3 months.
So you've seen a lot of changes.
Oh, indeed I have. Right. When I was born here, there was only like about 3,600 people, and there's a lot more people now.
What are the best things that you remember about growing up
I can't hear you.
What are the best things about your childhood that you remember growing up here?
It was just a beautiful town to grow up in, and I had a wonderful friend, Mrs. Meshon now, but her name was Hilda Shapiro, and we were the best of friends. We had a wonderful relationship. And
That's
so
wonderful that you're together. Isn't that great?
And we're here together tonight.
We planned it. Congratulations. Can you tell me your name, please?
Hilda Meshon.
And
Hilda Shapiro Meshon.
And what year did you graduate in?
1929.
And what street did you live on?
At 133 South Main Street in Sharon.
And where do you live now?
166 South Main Street in Sharon.
And what are the best things that you remember about growing up in Sharon?
It was a beautiful town, wonderful people. Sarah Mortensen was my best friend, and I still live there, and I love it.
Enjoy your
thought I was.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
How do you know me? I patronize Dr. Lasers, and I came to your house, and I said, value on your phone.
Look at the camera. The guy's wasting all that stuff.
Can you tell me your name, please?
Ovidio Fornashari,
And what year did you graduate in?
1929.
Where did you grow up in Sharon?
Where did I grow up?
What street?
Not too far from where the school was. And I lived there for a long, long time.
And where do you live now?
I live in Menlo Park. Menlo Park. My friend, she's my school teacher. She and I get together. Yeah.
Great. So what are some good things you remember growing up here?
Here where?
In Sharon.
It's a beautiful store. It's a beautiful place to live. And if I had half a dozen kids, they'd all be living there.
Well, enjoy the reunion. Thank you so much. I'm just going to ask you some questions. If you look in the camera and not look at me.
I'd rather look at you than that camera.
Can you tell me your name, please?
I'm Bill Fry. I moved to Sharon in 1936.
What year did you graduate in?
1938.
What
2
street,
years.
What street did you grow up on?
We
Did you live on?
We lived on Viaduct Street, which became Edge Hill Road, because we couldn't tell people how to spell Viaduct too often.
Who were your favorite teachers?
Doris Newton. She was my homeroom teacher.
Where do you live now?
I live on Glendale Road,
So you've been here for a long time.
and I have the biggest wood pile in town.
A high school graduate of Sharon?
Yes, I am.
Great.
All right.
Can you tell me your name, please?
You want my full name?
Sure.
All right. Helen Mann Moa. I should say Helen May Mann Moa.
And what year did you graduate in?
1938.
And what street did you grow up on?
On East Street.
And where do you live now?
I live in Wareham, Mass. now.
Do you come back here often?
Yes, I have family here. My brother still lives here on East Street.
So what is the biggest change you've seen in the town over the years?
Oh my, it has really grown.
What's the best thing you remember about growing up in Sharon?
Oh, I don't know. The childhood was great, and learning to swim at Lake Massapog and school here. It was very enjoyable.
Thank you so much.
Virginia Atham Young,
And what year did you graduate in?
1938,
What street did you grow up on?
Billings Street,
Where do you live now?
Sharon,
What street do you live on now?
Cottage Street.
So what was the best thing you remember growing up or going to high school in the...
Nothing. That's all of my good times, I guess.
That sounds good enough.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Can you tell me your name?
Winifred O'Leary,
And what year did you graduate in?
1938.
And where do you live now?
Sharon. I've lived in Sharon all my life.
What street did you grow up on?
I grew up on Tolman Street, and I now live on Lakeview Street.
So what are the best things that you remember growing up in a small town in Sharon?
Oh, we had a lot of fun. It was nice. It was countrified, but it was very nice.
Who were your favorite teachers in high school?
Well, I liked them all. I really didn't have any I disliked. I liked them all.
Thank you so much. Okay, if you just look in the camera, all right?
Sure.
Could you tell me your name, please?
Buddy Eldracker,
And what year did you graduate?
38,
And what street did you grow up on?
Ames Street,
And where do you live now?
Foxborough.
So you live in the area.
Oh, yeah.
Who were your... Look at the camera so we can see
Okay.
you.
All right.
Who were some of your friends in high school?
George and Gene Shine, a bunch of the guys who graduated in a year ahead of me. Dick Chase, Richie Bentinelli.
What's the best thing that you remember about growing up in Sharon?
Playing basketball.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
George Stevenson,
And what year did you graduate?
38,
And what street did you grow up on?
Summer Street.
Where do you live now?
Summer Street,
So you've lived in Sharon.
next door. Yeah, it didn't go very far.
Who were your favorite teachers in school?
Oh, Miss Newton, Miss Chase, Harold Clark. Yeah. So,
What's the best thing that you remember about growing up in Sharon?
oh, the friends, and it was a real hometown. Yeah, it was a great place.
Look at me. Okay.
All right.
Can you tell me your name?
John Landau,
And what year did you graduate in?
1942,
And what street did you live on in Sharon?
Pond Street,
Where do you live now?
Hull, Massachusetts.
Where?
Hull,
Uh-huh.
yes.
Do you come back to Sharon often?
Not as often as we did, because it's harder for us to travel around.
So have you noticed a lot of changes from last year?
Tremendous.
Right, yeah.
5 years ago was the last time we were in Sharon. Yeah.
So, did you enjoy growing up in a small town?
Yes, I did very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. That's his wife.
Yeah. My name is Miriam Landau.
Nice to meet you. Enjoy it. Thank you.
I don't know my name.
Just
be on TV.
What?
Is this going to be on TV?
No. Yeah, it might be. It might be on the cable. All right, I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions. Don't look at me. Just look up in the camera. Okay?
Are you going to sing Adele anyway?
No. You leave, would you?
Can you tell me your name?
It's not too bad after about...
Betty Adele Jones.
And what year did you graduate in?
1939.
And where do you live now?
Sharon. On 43 Deborah Sampson Street in Sharon.
So you've been a native all these years?
I came to Sharon when I was 4 years old.
So
Graduated when I was 16 years old.
what are the biggest changes you've seen over the years?
Development, all the houses.
What are the best things that you remember?
The lake, growing up right near it, swimming in it, skating on it. Also, we did coasting down Harding Street onto the lake.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Hi. How are you?
Just fine.
Good. Just look up there.
Yeah.
Can you tell me your name, please?
Virginia Scott Prince,
And what year did you graduate in?
39,
What street did you grow up in Sharon?
Pond,
Where do you live now?
Tennessee.
Tennessee?
Right.
So you've come a long way for this reunion.
I have.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you come back often?
Quite often, every year at least. Yeah.
So you've noticed a lot of changes over the years.
Very much.
What are the best things that you remember about growing up in a small town?
The sports, the water, the sailing. Just,
And your good friends here at the table.
yeah, a lot of friends. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
All right, do you want to hold this? And
Sure.
I'll just-
Sure.
Can you tell me your name, please?
Yeah, Miriam Kirstine Nypris,
And what year did you graduate in?
39.
What street did you grow up in Sharon?
A lot of streets. Oakland Road, South Main Street, Oakland Road, and well, I guess, and Harold Street.
And where do you live now?
I live in Walpole.
So you come back to Sharon often?
Oh well, yeah. If people ask me where I live, I always say Sharon.
Keep in touch with your old friends?
Oh sure, sure. I came here to Sharon when I was 6 months old.
What's the best thing that you remember about growing up here in a small town?
Well, it was a small town and very close friends, and my children all had the same teachers that I had, and I always thought that was really something because I thought they were old when I went to school.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Look into the camera. Can you tell me your name?
My name is Bert Friedman,
And what year did you graduate in?
1939.
Where do you live now?
I still live in Sharon.
You do. What street did you grow up in?
Oh, Oakland Road mostly. Bradford Avenue.
Who were some of your friends in high school? Are they here tonight?
As far as the fellas, one fella, Sonny Leventhal, is still in Florida. He couldn't make it, but Morris Rocket was close, and a few of the others. There were 13 from our class here tonight. Very good.
What's the best thing that you remember about growing up here?
It's a quiet little town, very peaceful. No, never had to lock your front door. Everything was fine.
Like they asked me to leave their class 50 years ago, so nothing's changed.
Maurice Rocket,
And what year did you graduate in?
39,
What street did you grow up in?
East Foxborough Street,
Where do you live now?
in Wayland.
Do you come back to Sharon often?
Never.
Never.
I haven't been back to Sharon, I think, in 40 years.
So you've seen a lot of changes. What's the biggest change you've seen?
Well, Sharon really is overgrown. The old town of 3,000 that was a pastoral setting now is becoming almost cityfied. There's too many people. heads will roll.
What's the best thing that you remember about growing up in Sharon?
Well, it was a different world then where you could really trust people, and there was an open feeling about things. People worked together, and they weren't trying to climb over each other. They worked together. It was just a totally different attitude. Society has changed. We were a good part, and look what's happened to it.
Well, I hope you enjoy your evening.
I will.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can you tell me your name?
Pete Seibert,
What year did you graduate in?
1942. Says so on the balloon, I think.
What street did you grow up on in Sharon?
East Street.
Where do you live now?
I live in Colorado, in Vail, Colorado.
Do you come back here often?
And no, rather not too often.
So you've seen a lot of changes. A big change for you to come back.
Well, I think things have changed all over the country, but certainly here as much as any place.
What's the best thing that you remember about growing up in Sharon?
Well, I think growing up in New England has been a very important part of my life, and I think the work ethic of New Englanders and so on has been very important.
Have you kept in touch with any of your old friends here?
To some degree, yeah, but we're not in business together, and I'm tied up in the ski business in Colorado, so that's about it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. We came in together in the rain.
Yes, we did. You're the one that walked in with me.
Thank you so much for your umbrella. We're just going to interview. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, but don't look at me. Just look at the camera.
Just look at the camera.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can you tell me your name?
Norma Boleyn.
And what year did you graduate in?
1942.
And where do you live now?
I live in Homestead, Florida.
And what street did you grow up on?
Upland Road.
Who are your favorite teachers in school?
My favorite teachers, Doris Newton was one of them. And let's see, I can't remember all of them, but she was my favorite. I liked her the best.
What do you like the best about, what do you remember the best about growing up in Sharon?
Oh, it's a beautiful town, wonderful town to grow up in. The seasons, everything. It was just lovely. Thank you.
Can you tell me your name?
I'm Marjorie Poria Nielsen.
And what year did you graduate in?
1942.
Where do you live now?
I live in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania.
And where did you grow up in Sharon? What street?
Ashcroft Road.
Uh-huh. Have you come back here often?
Not anymore. My sister moved away about 5 years ago, and I haven't been back.
So you've seen a lot of changes in the last
Well, I haven't been to the center of town yet, but I understand there are a lot of changes.
What's the best thing that you remember about
Sharon?
school or growing up here?
Well, since we grew up during the war, and there was no public transportation, I can remember having to walk down the lake so we could go for a walk around the lake. And that was a hike. But it was fun. It was fun. Everything we did, we had to do in town because there was no way to go anywhere else. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Can you tell me your name, please?
It's Betty Post.
And what year did you graduate in?
In 1942.
What street did you grow up on?
Viaduct Street in Sharon.
And where do you live now?
On Crest Road Way in Sharon.
And this gentleman to your right
is my husband, Irving Post.
What's happening?
And just look at the camera. And you graduated in what year?
1942, the same year as Betty Fry. And then later on we became Irving and Betty Fry Post.
Did you always know that you were going to be sweethearts?
Looking at Ilan, I think so.
Oh, really?
I would imagine so.
What's the best thing that you remember about growing up in Sharon?
Well, it was a little town, and it was very comfortable, and we all knew each other, and that was the nice part of it. Yeah, so I think that was probably the nicest part about Sharon, and that's about all I can remember about being a little guy in Sharon growing up.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Can you tell tell me your name, please?
Frida Gardner.
And what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 42. My husband's supposed to be here in class of 42.
What street did you grow up on?
Well, all around town, actually. My husband grew up on Pond Street.
And you live here now as well?
Still live here on Richards Avenue.
Do you keep in touch with a lot of your old friends?
Not too many. A few that are in the class of 43 and 42.
Teachers in high school?
Miss Chase, Miss Newton, Marion Healy that was just up there. That's all I can think of right offhand.
What did you like the best about growing up in Sharon?
It was a nice, small, friendly town. Everybody knew everybody. And we just enjoyed it. And we're still here.
We'll enjoy the reunion.
It has.
Thanks. Would you tell me your name, please?
Dot Sweetman, Dot McLean Sweetman.
And what year did you graduate in?
37.
And where do you live now?
Still on South Main Street.
In the same house that you grew up in?
About 3 houses up. Yeah.
Great. What do you remember best about growing up in Sharon?
We played basketball with all these girls here. That's
So
about
you've got
it.
a lot of old friends around the table.
Right, that's for
the
sure.
best.
Yeah, right, right.
Enjoy the reunion. Thank you so
very
much.
Your son, Chucky. I
Oh,
grew
yeah,
up with him.
yeah.
Well, here you go.
John Culinary.
Take it.
The uncle of Jody right here.
Come on, you have to hold it.
And what else?
All right. So, could you don't look at me.
I want to look at you.
Could you tell me your name, please?
John Culinary.
And where do you live now?
Foxborough.
And where did you grow up?
In Sharon.
What street?
Brook Road.
What number?
34.
What year did you graduate in?
37.
What do you remember best about growing up in Sharon?
Remember best about what growing up in Sharon? What a question. What a question.
Are you still friends with a lot of your friends from high school?
I hate them all.
Did you like any of your teachers in high school?
Hated them all, too.
Good to see you, dear.
You too.
Oh, it's a long time, Mike. Feeling all right?
Good. Hi, can I ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Would you mind holding the microphone?
Oh, sure.
Thank you very much. And you can just look straight ahead and
Yeah.
nod at me. Can you tell me your name, please?
Albert Kirstein,
And what year did you graduate in?
37,
What street did you grow up on?
Chestnut Street,
Where do you live now?
Stoughton, Greenbrook Drive, Stoughton.
So are you still friends with a lot of your old high school friends?
Well, few of them. Don't see many of them, you know.
What are the things that you remember best about growing up in Sharon that you liked the best?
Well, I like the friends I made. I like the country. I used to go down the lake quite often, stay there the whole day. You know.
We met down at Camp Campbell.
Camp Campbell. John and I, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the reunion.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wouldn't. I don't want
Right. Can you tell me your name, please?
Yeah, Polly Shepherd O'Neill.
And what year did you graduate in?
1937.
And where do you live now?
I live in Westwood, Massachusetts.
What street did you grow up on?
South Pleasant Street.
And who are some of your friends in high school?
Who were some of my friends?
Are they here this evening?
Yeah, Helen Moore, LeGrand, Johnny Culinary and his wife, and Dick Chase I knew from being a little kid, and his wife I know, and Dot McLean.
So you're very lucky. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
My name is Helen LeGrand.
And what year did you graduate in?
1937.
And what street did you grow up on in Sharon?
Ashcroft Road.
And where do you live now?
San Diego.
Do you come back to Sharon often to visit?
I come back. No, not often.
So things
It's a
have
lot.
changed a lot since the last time you were here?
No, I come quite frequently.
And what do you remember that was the best for you growing up in Sharon, in a small town?
I don't know. Swimming at Lake Massabog, I guess.
Any favorite teachers?
Oh, yeah. Who was the history teacher? I've forgotten her name. See, I'm getting old.
Thank you. Chase was the one. While you're chewing, I'll introduce you to my son. This is Mr. Chase. He's the father of an old friend of mine.
Hi, how are
You just look up at the camera. Okay, could you tell me your name, please?
Dick Chase,
And what year did you graduate?
1937,
And what street did you grow up in, Sharon?
Crest Road.
Where do you live now?
They live in North Yarmouth, Maine.
So do you come back often to Sharon?
No, not too. Passing through once in a while.
You've got a lot of your old friends here at the
Oh,
school?
yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah, I haven't missed a reunion yet.
Uh-huh, that's wonderful. What do you remember best, that you liked the best about growing up in Sharon?
I guess it was friendly, and I don't know just how to put it, but I was happy about the whole thing anyway.
Thank you. Enjoy the reunion. Thanks. Well, what year you graduated?
1939.
And what is your name, please?
My name is Matilda Murray Pierce.
And what street did you grow up on?
On 167 Moore Street.
Where do you live now?
Melrose.
You get back to Sharon often?
No, not at all. No, but we were here last year and go to visit this gal who lives there.
So you get to visit some of your old friends?
Well, not too many, really. Not too many. We don't come up this way very often.
Enjoy the reunion. Thank you.
I came from a big family of boys, Bodwell.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hi, could you tell me your name, please?
Marion Bodwell Rivero.
And where do you live now?
I live in Caracas, Venezuela.
So you come all this way for the reunion?
I came here for the reunion and to see two sons that live up here.
What year did you graduate in high school?
39.
And what street did you live on?
Huntington Avenue.
That's great. Did you enjoy growing up in Sharon?
Loved it. Loved it. Great place.
And you come back here often to visit your family?
Yes. Not too often to Sharon because they live in other places. My brother lives in near Worcester, and I'll be visiting him.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
My name is Crawford Calderwood.
And what year did you graduate in?
I didn't graduate. Now I'm filling the bill, okay? So I pass it on to my graduate wife?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, right over here.
Thank you.
Very well.
Give it back to her, dear. I'm just
Oh,
go around you. Thanks.
Hi.
All right, if you'll just look up there. Okay. Can you tell me your name?
Phyllis Wilbur Calderwood.
And what year did you graduate in?
1939.
And where do you live now?
In Foxborough, Massachusetts.
And what street did you live on in Sharon?
Old Post Road.
Who were your favorite teachers in high school?
Oh, my. Well, I would say Miss Newton and Miss Frost.
What do you remember the best of growing up in Sharon?
I really don't know. It was just a good time to be growing up in Sharon.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir? Can you tell me your name?
Margaret Johnny O'Leary.
What year did you graduate from high school?
1939.
And where do you live now?
In Sharon.
And what street did you grow up on?
Tolman Street. Now we live on Lakeview Street.
So you've enjoyed living in Sharon all these years?
was born in Sharon.
All right. That's great.
Yes.
What do you remember the best about growing up in Sharon?
It was a country.
Thank you so much. Can you tell me your name, please?
My name really is Mary Alice Brown Wagner. However, I'm called Robin.
And what year did you graduate from high school?
39.
Uh-huh. And where do you live now?
I live in Sharon. I always lived in Sharon. And I'll always live in Sharon.
What street did you grow up on?
Mansfield Street. And I live on Walla Park Street.
So we've got a lot of natives at this table.
Yes, that's true.
Great.
We grew up together.
Enjoy the reunion. Thank you.
Evelyn Ramsdale Stevenson.
And what year did you graduate in?
39.
What street did you grow up on, Sharon?
Moore Street.
And where do you live now?
Moore Street.
Uh-huh. So has Moore Street changed a lot over the years?
Well, not too much. Right now they have.
What
At
do
the
you
corner.
remember? What did you like the best about growing up in Sharon as a child?
Well, I always liked it. The people. I like it.
Thank you very much.
Wes Robinson,
And what year did you graduate?
1942,
What street did you grow up on?
45 Highland Street,
Uh-huh. And where do you live now?
Newburyport, Mass. Yeah,
Do you come back to Sharon often?
not really too often, no.
So you've seen a lot of changes.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
You're still good friends with a lot of your friends from high school?
Oh yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
What did you enjoy best about growing up in Sharon?
Oh, the camaraderie between the people in my class. I was a close friend of Irving Post, and he was my best man, and I was his best man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Paul Tanner,
And what grade were you in?
1942.
And what street did you grow up in Sharon?
I didn't understand you.
The street that you grew up?
Southeast, South Main Street,
Where do you live now?
Easton, Mass.
So you come back to Sharon a lot, have friends here?
Occasionally, yes.
What is the biggest change that you've noticed? Besides
Sharon Heights. Farms are gone, the tulips are gone.
Right. What is the thing you remember the best about growing up here?
I was only here a few years. The most was the friendship of the children I met here, the fellows in high school. I came from Boston, was well accepted here.
Thank you so much.
And I suppose you want my name, right?
I do.
Yeah, okay. I'm Sanford Rogers, class of 42. I used to be in the class of 36. However, I got in a bad accident and had to delay my graduation till 42. What else do you want to know about me? Well, I'm on the old berry farm, strawberry farm in Sharon Heights. And I was back through there today just looking around, and I'd never recognized it. The old farmhouse where I was born was gone. It's all heavily populated with houses, and it used to be open fields, and just recalling, we used to go out haying and stacking the hay in the barn, and we'd grow strawberries, of course, and potatoes and things like that, and we used to have to go out picking potato bugs in the summertime, and so for me it's quite an experience to see how modern civilization takes over from the raw land, and it's happening everywhere.
Right.
But
thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a good reunion. Thank you.
Main Street. That whole shul development was where he lived.
Mr. Berger.
Thank you.
Will you just look in the camera and say your name and the year you graduated?
Ed Berger, class of 42.
And what year did you move to Sharon?
Moved to Sharon in 1933. I was an infant at the time.
So where do you live now?
Still in Sharon, can't get out of
on
Sharon.
On the same street?
No, the same street as where I moved to Sharon to,
Right,
but a
yeah.
different house, thank
Right.
goodness. And this is my wife, Doris.
And what do you remember best about your early years of growing up in Sharon?
I remember all the good teachers we had. They were much younger in those days. And all the classmates that we had. Wes Robinson, Bud Allen, Fred Neathel, some of the others that I don't remember their names, but it was a good class, and we enjoyed the visits that we had on our reunions every 10 or 15 years. It was great.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Get this guy.
You just go up right.
Oh.
You just go next.
All right.
All right, just look in the camera. All right, and
What do you want me to say?
your name
My name's Fred Neathal,
and the year you graduated in high school.
42,
And what street did you live on growing up?
South Main Street.
And where do you live now?
South Main Street.
So you live in the same
Same house.
with your farm.
Right.
What do you remember the best about those early years of you moving to Sharon?
Well, the rural atmosphere we had, there was lots of wild open spaces, so we used to be able to go hunting and fishing and tramp the woods with no interference. Today it's so crowded, you can't move around anymore.
Who was your favorite teacher in high school?
Oh, we had several of them. Mr. Clark, who was the principal, was an excellent teacher. He was our shop teacher. And let's see, Pop Avery was our English teacher. Miss Newton was the French teacher. Who was the bookkeeper? I forget the bookkeeping teacher, but she was a real tyrant. And Mrs. O'Donnell was our school nurse. Okay.
Thank you.
You're talking to George Allen, commonly known as Bud, graduated in 1942. And what the heck else you want to know?
What street you grew up on?
Oh, let's see. I moved to Sharon in 1936, lived at 27 Summit Avenue. Then moved to Glendale Road. And what else?
Where do you live now?
I live in Danville, California, right up by the San Francisco by the Bay.
Do you come back to Sharon often?
Every reunion.
So you notice big changes from time to time when you come
No,
back?
as far as I know, Sharon looks exactly like it was when I grew up. I'm not kidding you. To me, it doesn't change a bit.
Still looks very green to you.
It's the same houses, the same people. They're a little older, that's all.
What do you remember the best, your best times of growing up here?
That's the toughest question because it was all good times.
Bob Moss, 111 Moss Street in Sharon. And
The year you graduated in?
I graduated in 1934, a long time ago.
And you're a lifelong resident?
A lifelong resident of the town. I live in the house I was born in.
Right, I know.
Hi. Yeah. Well, I'm Connie Darrow, and I still live in Sharon. Lived here all my life, and I expect I'll be here for the rest of my life.
Graduated?
This is all class of 1934.
Okay, great.
I know.
Thank you so much. Your name and where you live now and the street you grew up on.
Okay, my name is Teresa O'Leary Drake, and I live on 40 Lakeview Street today. Before it was Tolman Street, and I've lived here all my life. 2 changes.
Well, that's great. Thank you. You're welcome.
I'm John Santos. I was of the class of 34, but I went to Boston Trade School and finished my education in Boston. And I returned to Sharon a few times, and I've had a very illustrious life, Navy, Army, Air Force, whatever.
Well, congratulations. Thank you. Graduated in?
John Caldwell, now living in Grafton, Massachusetts, class of 1934.
What street did you grow up on in Sharon?
Pardon?
What street did you live in?
Pond Street, 42 Pond Street.
Great. Thank you.
I'm Peg Cawley Caldwell. And lived on Main Street in the Congregational Parsonage at the time. Graduated in 1934.
Where do you live now?
And I live now in Grafton. married to John Caldwell next to me, and we've had 6 children together.
So high school sweethearts?
Oh, yes.
Great. Congratulations.
Hi there. This is Norm Graves, class of 35. I lived in Sharon up on Norwood Street, up around the corner, all through high school. I don't know. Right now we're living in Concord, New Hampshire. I retired in 1980, a few years back. And we're in a retirement community up in Concord, and we were very happy to come down to this occasion.
Great. Thank you so much.
Harriet Daisy. Enjoying this evening very much.
And what year did you graduate in?
What was it? 35.
What street did you grow up on in
Huntington
Sharon?
Avenue. Since I was 2 years old, I've been in the same, oh dear.
And where do you live now?
50 Huntington Avenue.
That's wonderful.
Caroline Farwell Hosmer, class of 1935. I grew up on Glendale Road, and I now live 4 streets over on Huntington Avenue, and I'm a neighbor of the person next to me here.
Mr. Hosmer?
I didn't even go to high school. I couldn't pass the entrance exams.
But you grew up in where?
In Sharon.
What street?
Born in Sharon.
Yeah, but the oldest living inhabitant, I guess.
You were born at 66 North Main Street, right?
Yeah, how do you know that?
Well, because I live in your house.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't recognize you. Yeah, of course.
And now you live on Huntington Avenue.
Yep.
Great.
I can do it.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, my name is Jed Daly. Gerald? My name is Gerald Daly, but only my mother calls me Gerald. I'm known as Jed Daly.
What year?
1935.
And what street did you grow up on?
Pardon?
What street?
Well, Washington Place and High Street,
Where do you live now?
Vero Beach, Florida.
So you've come a long way from
Yes, I have.
Do you come back to Sharon often to visit?
No, this is the first time in many, many years.
Oh, well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone is very happy to see you.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Larry Robinson, lived on 19 Tolman Street in Sharon, and now I live in Foxborough on Eastman Avenue.
And what year did you graduate?
Graduated in 1935.
That's wonderful. Thank you. You just look up into the camera and tell us your name and what year you graduated.
I'm Helen Cupp. I graduated in 1935.
And where do you live now?
We live in Wilmington, Delaware.
And where did you live in Sharon growing up?
We lived on South Pleasant Street and walked to school.
And the lake, right?
Right.
Esther Bosworth.
And what year did you graduate?
What year did I graduate? 45, 1945. 35. 35.
And what street did you grow up on?
What?
What street did you grow up on? Did you live in?
Oh, Pleasant Street.
And where do you live now?
Sharon. And now I live in Foxborough. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the reunion. Thanks. Where you live now and what street you lived in Sharon, lived on?
My name is Chet Stern. I graduated in 1940. I still live in Sharon, but not in the same house. I lived on Oakland Road. I now live on Robin Road, which didn't exist when I was growing up.
Thank you so much.
Can
you tell me your name, please?
John Bradford.
And what street did you grow up on in Sharon?
Maple Avenue.
And where do you live now?
Falmouth, Maine.
And what year did you graduate?
1940, I think. Right, Chuck?
Thank you.
We have the new mic now, right here.
Hi, I'm Tom Nelson, I'm class of 40. This is my wife, Marty. And I don't know what else you want to know here. You wanted to, oh, we live in Port Charlotte, Florida. And I'm a retired professor.
What street did you?
I grew up on Cottage Street, the house that Shirley and Bob Schofield live in right now, and went to Sharon, all the Sharon schools, in fact, that were in operation in those days, and graduated from the old Sharon High School. And my friends are all the ones at the table here, John and Herman and so forth.
Congratulations.
It's been a great reunion.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
My name is Herman McGrath.
And
I'm class of 1940. I am the oldest present of 9 graduates of Sharon High School. There are 7 of us here tonight. We're having a wonderful time.
Where do you live now?
I live in Pensacola, Florida right now. I'm about to repair my roof and my ceilings after Hurricane George did some nasties to me.
What street did you grow up in, Sharon?
I lived in Billing Street in the house that Jackie Dutton now has an insurance agency. Anything else?
No, that's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell me your name, please.
Barbara Finkelday.
And what class did you graduate in?
40. Barbara White.
And where do you live now?
Hannibal, New Hampshire.
And what street did you grow up on, Sharon?
Brook Road.
Cynthia Allman Buffington Mason. How do you like that?
Very good.
What class did you graduate?
Well, right there,
Well, some graduates are sitting with other people, so.
1940. That was the best class.
Right. And where do you live now?
Westport, Connecticut.
And what street did you grow up in Sharon?
Huntington Avenue. It was a nice town to grow up in.
Yes, it was. Thank you so
How
much.
do you know? Did
I
you
grew up here.
My name is Jose Jimenez.
Look at the camera.
Do you want my favorite teacher?
Sure.
My favorite teacher? Whitey Bulger. My name is Mel Leventhal, and I'm in the class of 1941, and I lived on Massapog Avenue at that time. And what else do you want to know?
Where you live now?
I live on Robin Road now in the same wonderful town of Sharon. And this is my wife, Marilyn, who's from Cambridge. Okay.
Hi. I'm from the class of 1941. Norma Scott, I was then, now Norma Scott Covey. That's my husband, Miles. I lived at 30 Chestnut Street. Now live in Glastonbury, Connecticut.
Thank you so much.
Okay, this is William Hall, graduated in 1941 from Sharon. Still living in Sharon. Moved 4 times and still there.
What street did you grow up on?
I didn't grow up in Sharon. I grew up in Boston, Roxbury, and I moved out from there. And I've been in Sharon since I was 14 years old, 79 now.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
We moved a lot because we couldn't pay the rent.
One or two will do.
My name is Kendall Southern. I was in the class of 41 at Sharon High School, and I presently live in Mansfield, Massachusetts, and I lived on South Main Street in Sharon.
Thank you so much.
I'm Jane Clark, and I graduated with the class of 1941, and I lived on Richards Avenue in Sharon, and right now I'm living on the Cape.
My name is Herb Gross, and I lived on North Main Street, Sharon Turkey Farm. Moved to other places in Sharon, and now reside in Mansfield. And this is my wife, Dorothy, of 53 years. And glad to be here, having a good time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Prescott, class of 1941. I lived on 4 Sylvan Road in Sharon. It was the greatest town to be brought up that anyone could ever believe.
now reside in South Windsor, Connecticut.
Chase Bruce. I was born on 36 Crest Road, and I lived there till I was 35. I live in New Hampshire now.
And you're the class of?
43.
Thank you.
My name is Walter White, and I live in Brevard, North Carolina.
You are. And what street did you grow up in, Sharon?
I lived on Brook Road, High Street, and Depot Street.
And you're the class of 43?
43, yes.
This will begin at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Alan Davis, class of 43, and lived on Billings Street
And where do you live now, sir?
in Balsam Lake, Wisconsin.
So you traveled a long way for this reunion.
Oh yeah, we came a ways.
That's great. Congratulations. Thank you.
I'm George Bailey. I'm in class of 43 and grew up at 181 North Main Street, and I still live in Sharon.
On what
I live on Glendale Road for the last 39 years.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, Francis Hall. I've lived in other places, but grew up mostly in Sharon. And just left 102 Upland Road and still live in a small apartment in Sharon.
This is Jim Ross. I graduated in 1943. I lived on Pleasant Street in Sharon, and I'm now living in Boxford, Massachusetts.
Thank you so much.
I'm married to Jim, so I'm Barbara Ross. I'm married to Jim.
You can get whatever you wanted.
I'm Yvonne Laterna Coleman, and I live in Fairfax, Virginia for 25 years.
What street did you grow up in, Sharon?
I lived on Mohawk Street for a number of years, and then I moved to Billings Street.
And you're the class of?
1943.
Thank you.
I'm Morris Shepherd. I lived on Pleasant Street, and I went to all of the schools, School Street, High Street, Pleasant Street, and the high school. And I live in Colorado now, near Vail.
Wow, that's
I was in the class of 43.
What street did you grow up in?
I lived on Pleasant Street.
Thank you.
I'm Joni Fader Joy, and I'm the class of 43, lived on Bay Road, and now I live in Gray, Maine.
I'm Agnes Neathold Ross. I live now in Wilbraham, Mass, and I lived on Main Street in Sharon.
Thank you. And what
1941 on deck.
What class?
Class of 43.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jean Pike Wilkinson. I attended all the schools in Sharon, first grade through the 12th. I lived on South Pleasant Street.
Shirley.
And I'm now living in Bayonet Point, Florida.
Thank you.
I'm Ginny Edwards. No, okay, back it up. Ginny Neathall Edwards. Okay, I lived on South Main Street.
Let's see,
what else they want to know? I now live in Orange Park, Florida.
The Sharon High School class of
And I don't know anything else.
They were able to locate
Class of 44.
members.
This is 44. Okay.
Thank you.
They are Miss Elizabeth Derry Sundell.
I'm Marge Clark Hansen.
is here with us this evening.
Oh, I
And
graduated in
if you
44.
I have
Grew
her
up
come
in
and take
Sharon,
a
of course.
photo. Is she still here? She's right there
favorite
at
teacher?
center stage, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
can't hear you.
No.
Let's have a nice warm round of applause for Mrs.
Oh, this is just a great time.
Derry Sundell
We've
of
always lived in
Mass.
Sharon, but recently moved to Walpole.
She is
And my husband is Lowell, and he's one of our members too.
From the class of 1920. Remarkable. And she walked in and she took her photo, and I had dinner with her this evening. A lovely lady.
Okay.
And the class, and where you live now, and what street you
This
live
is Esther Derry Sundell.
Lowell Hanson,
Nita Mass.
graduated from Sharon High School. I live on, used to live in Sharon. I'm presently in Walpole. All my friends are in the same year school. General comment, great job on the reunion. Last show in Sharon yesterday.
My name is Catherine Fabian. I was Catherine Perry. I live in Stoughton now, but I grew up most of the time in Sharon. I sort of grew up halfway across the United States, really. and I now live in Stoughton. I have 2 sons, and now I'm a retired school teacher also in town of Sharon.
And you're the class of
44.
Thank you so much.
My name was Evelyn Perry. It's now Evelyn Prosser. I went to school in Sharon and I graduated in 1944. I'm a mother of 9 children, 16 grand and 17 great-grand. And I'm just pleased to be here.
Great.
Mildred Joan Waldman Mendes.
And where did you grow up? What street in Sharon?
I grew up on, where did I grow up? South Main Street.
And where do you live now?
I live here in Foxborough.
And you're the class of?
1944.
Great.
Okay.
Lived on Pond Street down at the lake.
There were 9 children in the
And
family.
I now live on South Walpole Street in Sharon.
You're the class of?
1944.
I'm going to have them go out onto the dance floor there when I call them out.
My name is Arthur Taylor. I lived at 110 South Main Street, class of 1944.
When I call your name.
My name is Wilbur Morse. I live at 22 North Main Street, Sharon. This is my wife, Margie. In 1944, I lived where I'm living right now.
My name is Earl Mayhofer. My present address is New Hampshire. And I grew up in Sharon, went to Sharon High School.
I don't know if they made their way up there.
Name, please.
Yes, Jerry Kirstein.
And the year you graduated?
I in 1944.
And where do you live now?
I live in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts.
And what street?
All right, we're ready for the class.
I lived on South Main Street in Sharon.
And the class of 1943.
Anything else?
If you please get
My
on
favorite teachers. Mr.
1943,
Avery,
up at bat. 1940,
Miss Newton, and Miss Chase. And they were just wonderful. Thank you very much.
Chase Napton. I live in Concord, New Hampshire, or Hillsborough rather. And I did live 36 Crest Road,
John Wright here, class of 1946. John Wright, class of 46. John traveled.
I'm the bride of that woman.
From Hawaii.
Could you tell us your name?
Where's John?
Oh, I'm Dick Boland.
And what year did you graduate in?
45.
Where do you live now?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Where do you live in Sharon? What street?
Oh, I lived on South Main Street when I was in high school. Then I lived for a while on Brook Road.
You come back often?
Yeah, my family's still here. My mother's still here. My sister, my son. Not in Sharon, but around the area. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Camera?
Oh, all right. I'm used to that, yeah.
If you just
Okay.
Your name, please.
Buffalo Bob Noyes.
And your class?
1945.
And where do you live now?
I live on Cape Cod in Yarmouthport.
And what street did you grow up in Sharon?
8 Cottage Street. Yep.
Thank you so
You're still there, too.
I'm not.
Can you tell us your name, please?
Daniel Field,
And you're the class of 44?
45.
And where do you live now?
Where am I now? I'm still where I never left. I'm still in Bay Road.
You are? That's
Sharon.
great. Congratulations. Thank you.
All right.
I hear tonight Sarah Mortensen Flores and a video pronunciation.
Marion Durkee Cunningham.
And what class?
Class of 1945. And I've stayed in Sharon and was a
Did you live on growing up?
same street, Edge Hill Road. I worked for Sharon Public Schools as a secretary for 29 years. I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Okay. I live at 8 Summer Street, Sharon. Graduated in 1946. What else you want? Oh, William Lethal. Favorite teacher? Doris Newton.
1944 on deck, 1945 on in the hole.
What else?
He's telling me that the very last night that he was on duty, this was a funny story, but the last night that Hap was on duty, what is Hap, by the way? Hap Donovan. Where is the lieutenant? Is he around? Where's the lieutenant? Lieutenant Hap Donovan and Sergeant, where's Sergeant Mark? Right over there. Well, look at the lieutenant right here. He retired 2 years ago, and he told me that the last night he was on duty, and I can't figure out why the last night that he was on duty, that he was working nights. It might have been an overtime or something, but he said he was patrolling the streets of Sharon and his car pulled up, well, going at a pretty good rate of speed. He pulled the car in 1996. He cautiously approached the car. The fellow rolled down the window, and Hap said, let me have your license and registration, please. And he says, do you know that you were traveling at 60 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, and also you were not wearing your seatbelt? And the gentleman said, well, he says, you know, I might have been going a little bit fast, he says, but I was wearing my seatbelt. And the guy's wife said, no, he wasn't on. Yeah, and Hap, in case anybody's in here, Hap is now giving golf lessons. He's turned to golf and he's giving lessons, and at a pretty good rate, too. All right, we're up there. We're ready for the class of 45, 44, 45, 46, 4. I can't. 4, 5, 4, 9, 4, 8, 4, 7, 4, 6. I don't know. I don't know where we're at.
Bruce Bailey, class of 1946, Sharon High School. I grew up and lived in North Main Street and had a great time through Sharon school system. It was a wonderful place to grow up.
I'm Mary Frances Champion from the class of 1948, and I just lived here for the 4 years that I was in high school, and for me, Sharon was the place where I really had a home and had people I knew and who knew me, and it's a very special place in my heart always for that reason.
And I live in Falmouth. I have 5 children, 11 grandchildren. I'm doing the best I can at this point. My Holton died a year ago that was also a Sharon schoolmate, and I'm hoping I have a good life. And this is my friend Jeannie Bach, who's a wonderful lady.
Thank you. Thank you. I grew up in Sharon from the age of 0, and then I left for the last 2 years of high school. I lived at 126 South Main Street, and then I moved to New York, and that's where I live, and I've been in social work and music, and I'm saving the world. Not doing a very good job of saving it, but I'm trying. Thank you.
1946, here they go.
Hi, I'm Edie White, and I grew up on Huntington Avenue, and we live in Marion, Mass. now.
Russ White. I came to Sharon and started 9th grade, Little Road, right behind the high school. Edie and I are down in Marion now. And despite what Lorraine said, we were not sweethearts at high school. We didn't start going together until junior year in college.
No better than that. Look right here. Okay, let me do one more. Hold on. Look right here for me. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
We're celebrating our 70th birthday this year.
Barbara Condon Waters, class of 1946, Highland Street, and I now live in Millinocket.
And I'm Barbara Feast McGrath. I grew up on Stone Street, and I graduated in 46, and I now live in South Yarmouth on the Cape.
Hi, Jody. Hi, I'm Shirley. Is that on? I'm Shirley Harris Schofield. I grew up on Cottage Street. I moved away from Cottage Street to Billing Street, and I'm back on Cottage Street. What else do you want? I'm the class of 1946, and this year we're celebrating our 70th birthdays.
Hi, my name is Millie Moore. My maiden name was Mildred Perry. I graduated in the class of 6, and I grew up on Woodland Street in Sharon, of course. I now live in Berkeley. We moved to Berkeley 11 years ago, and when they put stop lights into Sharon, we decided it was time to go. So we moved to Berkeley. It's a little town much like Sharon was when we grew up. When we were kids in Sharon, at 9 o'clock at night, they rang the whistle 3 times, and you had to be home, or else Chief Lavezzo would take you home. It was a great town, and we had a lot of fun, unsophisticated fun that was just a great place to live and make great memories. Nice to see everybody.
My name is Pete Clapp, and I graduated in 1948 from Sharon High School, and today I'm northern Michigan, out in the woods, and nobody can find me there.
I graduated in 1948, and my name is Terry Maloney Ward, and I've lived a few places since I graduated from Sharon High, but I live in Walpole, Mass. now. It's a great time tonight.
Hi, I'm Jim Fitzpatrick. I grew up on 180 South Main Street. I live in Tucson, Arizona, and I didn't graduate from Sharon High. But I was in the class of 49.
I Greater Storkville, Reddick, and I grew up on Glendale Road in Sharon. I now live in Easton.
Yvonne Hayes Keys, lived on Summer Street, grew up in Sharon, graduated in 49. Married Jim Keys, 1952, moved to Mansfield Street, and I'm still there.
Charles, I don't talk much. My husband does all the talking, and he grew up on Pond Street. I grew up on Glendale Road, and we now live on Brook Road. Believe it or not, we're stuck in Sharon. Arlen Bennett, Charlie Bennett, take the phone.
Yeah, I'm Charlie Bennett. That's Alan Bennett. Alan was Alan Erisman, who lived on Glendale. What's the matter? Get it in front of me? Okay, and she gave you all the other information, right? So I'll pass it along to Helen Hogan.
Helen Hawkins Hogan grew up on Pleasant Street, now on South Pleasant.
Joan Rocket, I grew up on Bay Road, now I live in Foxborough.
Hep Donovan, I grew up on Dunbar Street, and now I come from South Pleasant Street right beside Helen. And I think this is great.
Bev Reed, and I grew up on 27 Summit Avenue, and now I live in Foxborough.
Hi, my name is David Evers, and I used to be in the class of 1950. Lived on Pond Street, corner of Chestnut and Pond. Now I live in Annapolis, Maryland.
Hi there, Bob Rodman, class of 1950. Grew up on Mountain Street, Rodman Poultry Farm, because that's my name. And it's, where do we live now? Avon, Connecticut. Jeanette. Thank you.
I'm supposed to say, my name is Jeanette McDonald Shaw. I live in Walpole. I grew up on Oakland Road in Sharon. What else? That's it.
Hi, I'm Mary Pratt Zasada. I grew up in Sharon on Walpole Street. Now my husband and I live in a suburb of Baltimore, Maryland, and we are both special educators, have 2 children, 2 grandchildren, 2 grandcats.
Hi, my name is Arnold Mitchell, graduated 1950. After the graduating high school and going to college, I went to in the service, Air Force, stayed, and I have 3 kids and 2 grandchildren. My wife is here with me, and I used to live in Bradford Ave in Sharon, and I'm a retired engineer. Been retired for 10.5 years.
Backle Blackler. I grew up in Sharon, in the graduated with the class of 1950. Still live in Sharon, wouldn't live anywhere else. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Maria Graves. I grew up on Walpole Street in Sharon. I'm responsible for this affair. That's all I can say.
Hi, my name is Phil Bonds, class of 1950. Grew up on Brook Road in Sharon and currently am a self-employed attorney in Simsbury, Connecticut.
My name is Ed Baldwin. I was born and brought up at 287 Mansfield Street in Sharon. We're having a great time with the reunion. We've also already set up a foursome consisting of Bob Rodman, Kenny Ornell, and Phil Bonds to play golf next Wednesday. Having a great time.
My name is Jim Hagan, in the class of 1950, Sharon High School. I grew up in Sharon, Mass. Lived on Lakeview Street up at Camp Maryland, which is now known as New Horizons. I'm retired. I'm living up in Lincoln, New Hampshire at Loon Mountain. Come on up and ski with us. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ann Bishop, and I'm from Foxborough, Mass. I'm having a lovely evening, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
In the class of 1950?
Class of 1950.
What street did you grow up on, Sharon?
Lee Road. Okay?
Hi, I'm Ellie Davidson, class of 50. I live in Florida.
Class of 1949, please.
1950. And what street did you grow up on in Sharon? South Main Street. Sharon, Mass. South Main Street.
Class of 1940.
Class of 1950.
And what street did you grow up on in Sharon?
I grew up on Tolman Street.
And where do you live now?
Where's what?
Where do you live now?
I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Hi, I'm Tom Cleveland. I grew up in Sharon on Summit Avenue, and I currently still live in Sharon on Tolman Street. I have a wonderful wife, Carolyn, 4 great kids, and hi, you all.
My name is Jane McDonald. I'm the class of 1950, and I live in Foxborough, Mass.
What street did you grow up on?
North Main Street, Sharon, by the Bell House.
Carolyn Bodwell, but I have laryngitis.
Isn't she still beautiful?
The end.
I'm Bobby Guillet Atkinson, and I grew up on South Main Street, and I now live in Harvard, Mass. I have 3 children, and I'm just retired from teaching special needs children.
Hi, I'm Rick Erklins. I grew up on Glendale Road in Sharon, Mass. Class of 1951. I live in Florida now, in St. Augustine, which is the oldest city in the country, and get back here probably about once a year. It's nice to see all my old friends.
Portia Rader Hawkes. Grew up on Harold Street. Actually, the last 3 years, high school in Sharon. Live in Boston at the moment.
Bob Schwartz lived at Moose Hill Parkway when I was in Sharon, left Sharon in 51, and now live in Alsea, Oregon.
Marilyn Watterson Coyne, living on Tolman Street for most of my life, and then on Pond Street, class 1951.
George O'Day, Ashcroft Road, class of 1951. Marilyn was my first love.
Oh boy.
Richard Buttinger, formerly of Pine Road, Sharon, class of 51, left and graduated from a school in Maine. I now live in Norwood, Mass.
My name is Mike Beaver, and I was on Moose Hill Parkway.
I'm Joan Littlefield, Joan Clark Littlefield, and I live in Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts.
I'm Cal Hosmer. I grew up on Moose Hill Parkway in Sharon, class of 51. I now live in York, Maine.
Joan Butler, class of 51. Yeah. God, I lived in about 3 or 4 different houses in Sharon. I was on North Main Street, Ames Street, Walpole Street, between Buzzards Bay and Fort Lauderdale. We're snowbirds.
Hello, I'm Janet Fleming Haynes, and I grew up in Sharon on 8 South Pleasant Street, where my parents still live.
and I live in Foxborough now. I've moved a long way away.
Hi, I'm Jean Cole Silva, and I grew up at 135 Pond Street, Sharon, with my parents, and now I live in Easton on Central Street, and I'm the class of 1952.
Hi, I'm Elaine Mitchell-Corman, class of 1952, grew up on Bradford Avenue, Sharon, and I moved around the corner. I still live in Sharon on Robin Road.
My name's William Welch, lived on Depot Street, now live in Lexington, Mass, class of 1952.
John Mann. I was brought up on 223 East Street in Sharon. At the present moment, I'm 227 East Street in Sharon. My daughter and son-in-law live in the original house.
Zeta Loudon on Billings Street. I now live in East Kodak, New York.
Hi, y'all. How you doing? I'm Don Wallace, and I live in Sanford, Maine. Grew up in Sharon and graduated in 1952, and have 9 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild. That's about it.
What street did you grow up on? What street did you grow up on?
Grew up on Ames Street.
You want to know what my name is? My name is Frank Brunetta. I lived on High Plains Street, Sharon, class of 52. I live in Walpole now, 3 children and 9 grandchildren. Does that suffice?
Hi, Janet Sanders, class of 1952. I lived on Glendale Road in Sharon, and I now live in Caulfield, Missouri.
I did everything.
Hello, I'm in the class of 52. My name is Joan Marshall McLean, and we lived on Billings Street, and now I live in Connecticut in New Britain. Thanks. Okay, here you go, Frank. It's your turn.
Okay, yeah. Frank Beveridge, I lived at 7 South Pleasant Street in Sharon, Mass. Graduated in 52 with the rest of them. Now in South Portland, Maine. And I guess that's about it.
Hi, Joe Monahan. I lived on Street Sharon, and for the past 37 years, I live in South Dennis on Cape Cod.
Hi, I'm Don Phelps, class of 1952. Used to live in Sharon. I'm living in Foxborough now. How's everything going? Hope everybody's having a good time. Bye.
Hi, I'm John Monroe, class of 1952. I played the brat in a school play, Cheaper by the Dozen, and I got the part because I didn't have to act. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dirk Wrightson, enjoying the great life in Florida these days, but it's great to be back and see the old schoolmates.
What's your name? What street did you grow up on?
Al Kafka. I grew up on Massapoque Avenue, and son of a gun, that's where I still am. I just haven't moved. What a great time this is. Really a wonderful event.
I'm Margaret Morgan Miller Kohler. I used to live at 15 Edgewood Road in Sharon. I now live in Newbury, New Hampshire, near Lake Sunapee. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm Marie Hurley Cuneo. I graduated in 1953. I grew up at 53 East Street. Now I live at 68 Mansfield Street. My husband is a 1944 graduate of Sharon High also.
Hi, I'm Bill Burt, class of 1953. I lived at 43 High Street. I live in Foxborough right now.
My name is Bob Riley. I'm a class of 1953. I went to high school from 87 Billings Street, and now I live at 133 Ames Street, Sharon, Massachusetts.
Alan Dunnican, class of 53. I lived at 39 High Street, Sharon, and I can still be found at that address.
Edna Lavezzo Ravello. I lived on Pole Plain Road, and I now live in Grand Circle. So I haven't moved very far. Graduated in the class of 1953. I'm C. Farley Peck Coombs. What else did you want to know? lived on Pond Street, but my house is no more. Gone. I was across one time from the funeral parlor. Now it's the credit union, right? And the little garage that we knew is now the Chinese restaurant. And the street looks very, very different.
I came back to the States after 45 years. I was a student at Sharon High School, 52 and 53, and I enjoyed it very much. And I'm so happy to be back and see all my old classmates. It's really a big treat, and I am very grateful that this has happened to me. I was an exchange student of the American Field Service way back in 55, 52, 53.
Where did you live in Sharon?
I lived with the superintendent of schools, Mr. Herman Richardson, and his daughter and his son-in-law are here, and they took me down to that place. And I'm still friends with all of them, and the former art teacher, Ann Dan, and she told me to tell everyone that she would have liked to come here. She is 9 now. She would have enjoyed it very much. She doesn't dare to go away in the hurricane season from Florida to here up to here to Massachusetts.
Hi, my name's Bill Maloney, and I would have graduated in the class of 53. However, I left Sharon about 1950 and attended the Boston Trade High School and graduated in 53. I'm presently living in Walpole now, married to a Claire Janice Delaney Maloney. And when I lived in Sharon, I lived on Clark Street, the first street on your left, leaving Sharon Center after the railroad bridge, next to a fellow by the name of Ed Sweeney. And it's nice to be here tonight. Now I'm going to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Ralph McGonigal.
Ralph McGonigal lived at 350 South Main Street then we moved down to 115 North Main Street. Like Billy, I went to all the Sharon schools through the 8th grade. And then I went into Boston Latin School. I'm very happy to be included in the class of 53 from Sharon. So it's been a wonderful evening to meet with all my classmates again. Thank you.
Dano, class of 55, lived on Moose Hill Parkway in Sharon, currently live in Westford, Mass.
Jack Patterson, class of 55. I lived at 231 South Main Street, Sharon. Did 3 years in the Marine Corps, and I live in Stoughton now on the fire department.
Dan Carpino, class of 55, 25 Walpole Street, retired about 10 years ago.
55, where you live now?
Grew up in Sharon, class of 1955, Lorraine Corman Minsky. I am now retired to Palm City, Florida. I play a lot of golf, and I'm having a lot of fun. And what else can I tell you? I grew up on Massapah Gap, Corman's Hotel. Yeah, okay?
Hi, Hank Geisler, class of 55, 35 Crest Road is where I grew up, and I live in Minnesota now, Webster, Minnesota.
My name is Pat Carney, Legue Hathaway. I lived on 97 Pond Street in Sharon. I'm really far away in Northeastern, about miles away. I just attended my 40th nursing school reunion, and a couple of my classmates had married a couple of my high school classmates, and we had a really great time.
My name is Kay Carter, McCaskill Carter. I used to live on Belcher Street in Sharon, and I've been in Virginia Beach for 26 years.
My name is Mary Ann Lynn Strobsdorf. I used to live on Billing Street. I left Sharon after the 8th grade, but I still remember Sharon very well. I was class of 1955, would have been.
Okay, what do I say? My name is Mary Ayres, Mary Brunetta Ayres, class of 1955. Pardon? Lived on High Plains Street, other side of town, way out of town. And I've been away from Sharon for 40 years. This is my first time back. We live in St. Louis now, and my first class reunion that I've ever been to, and it's great.
Charles McNair, lived in Sharon, graduated in 55. Lived in Sharon 61 years. What street? Corner of Billings and Cottage.
Where do you live now?
Same place. 61 years I lived in Sharon. And it's good to see everybody. It's great to see everybody. Thank you. Sign off.
This is Marlene Levinson, Lavezzo Bud. I'm still living at Pole Plain Road in Sharon. Grew up on Norfolk Place. I only have a few grandchildren and a couple of kids still left at home. Everyone else has left, thank goodness. I don't know what else you want to hear. It's been fun.
I know you guys graduated from school, so you must know some English.
I never spoke it. Alice Richards, class of 54. We grew up on High Street and now live in San Diego.
Hi, my name is Bob Hall. I grew up in 102 Upland Road in Sharon. I now live at 27 Norwood Street in Sharon. I've lived here all my life, and I work in the post office up in Sharon for almost 38 years now.
Bernie Schumann, lived at 7 Park Road in Sharon. Currently reside in Sharon on Huckleberry Lane. Work as a medical illustrator.
What year did you graduate? What year did you graduate?
1954.
Well, we graduated together. We're
class of 54. I lived on 11 Huntington Avenue, Sharon.
Your name is?
George Goodwin.
And I'm Gretchen Myers Goodwin.
And we now live in Wellesley and been married 43 years in November. And 43.
43. And I lived on Billings Street and Goodrich Place.
And thank you very much.
I'm extraordinarily nervous. My name is Judy Risch. I grew up first at 58 Richards Avenue, moved to 23 Maple Avenue when I was 8. I now live on Beacon Hill in Boston. I'm Norma Bowles Parrish. I grew up at 72 Highland Avenue in Sharon, and I live in Sherburne on 159 Washington Street. I've been there for 27 years. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Dennis Rowe. I lived on 16 High Plains Street. I'm the class of 54, and now I live in Margate, Florida.
Lived on Sharon on class of 1954, Donald Chambers. Lived on Pond Street for 40 years. And now I live in Foxborough for the last 4 years. Oh.
Hi, my name's David Elson. That's my honey. And we've lived in Sharon our whole lives except for the last 4 years. We're graduated in the class of 1954. I have a sister here, Betty, who also graduated the same year.
Hi, I'm Betty Elson Roseman. I graduated in 1954, came in from Dallas, Texas, and glad to be here.
Hi, my name is George Mark. I grew up on East Chestnut Street, and I made a great move a few years ago. I moved next door. I'm still living in the same area.
We need 96 up here.
My name is Dick Rowell. I lived at 176 Pond Street in Sharon.
What year did you graduate?
1957.
Where do you live now?
Foxborough.
John McPhail. I lived at 22 Maple Avenue, Sharon, Massachusetts, and presently live in Westford, Massachusetts.
What year did you graduate?
1957.
Joseph DiGirolamo. I grew up at 52 South Main Street, Sharon, and I'm currently living at 51 Mechanic Street, Foxborough.
Hi. Joey. Arthur Schiff. Lived in 7 Webb Road in Sharon, now living in Coral Springs, Florida. Class of 57.
Hi, I'm Marie McGrath Parazzo, and I lived at 77 Billing Street, and I now live in West Yarmouth, Mass.
Bob Ann, San Antonio, Texas. Very nice reunion. Appreciate it.
My name was Susie Butler. It's now Virginia Leary-Callahan. I grew up on Tolman Street in Sharon, and I live in East Falmouth now.
My name is Barbara Healy Neal. I grew up on Bradford Ave, and I live in Yarmouthport now.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Zambella Phelan. I live at 149 Rock Street in Norwood. I grew up at 129 South Main in Sharon. And I have 4 children and a husband. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peggy Chubb Evers, and I used to live on Moose Hill Parkway in Sharon. And now I live in Bridgewater, Massachusetts, and I have 2 wonderful grown kids.
I'm Katie Rowe O'Neill, and I grew up on High Plain Street.
Where do you live
And now I live in Lynn.
Tell you what,
Say your name, what street you grew
I
up
can
on.
do all that. Hi, I'm Binky Hurth. I grew up in Sharon. I still live in Sharon. I've been chasing Katie Rowe, who was on just before me, for about 25 years, and I'm going to catch her. Bye.
My name is Carol Geisler Oliver, and I lived on 35 Crest Road in Sharon, and now I live on Ashcroft Road in Sharon.
David Rivers. I lived in Goodrich Place in Sharon. I now live in Laconia, New Hampshire.
My name is Chad Glover. I lived at 13 Harold Street, and I'm currently living in Northfield, Mass.
Susan Snyder Markowitz, class of 57. I grew up on Ames Street and now live on South Main.
Is Ree Kennedy. I graduated in 1957. I lived on South Main Street in Sharon. I now reside in California. Thank you.
Now, okay, Bob Callahan from Woodstock, New York, class of 57. I'm no smarter now than I was then. And it's a wonderful party, and I'm enjoying it and having a great time. Thanks.
Were you in Woodstock?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. That's what made it Woodstock. I was there. Okay, thanks.
My name is June Goyette, and I live in Norton, Mass, and I was in the class of 1956.
What street did you grow up on?
Billings Street in Sharon.
Steve Leadham, grew up at 347 South Main Street, and now live at 1 Stockade Path in Duxbury. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Dick Dorr. I grew up on Old Post Road in Sharon. I now live in 232 Mechanic Street in Foxborough.
Hi, Maureen Wells. I lived at 43 Clark Street in Sharon. I graduated the class of 56, and I live in Foxborough now.
Hi, I'm Ann Hayes Strange, and when I lived in Sharon, I was at 15 Summer Street. Now I live at Big Rock Lane in Hanson.
Bonnie Flynn Kidsman. Lived in Sharon at 112 Maspahog Avenue. And I now live in Winnetka, Illinois. Class of 56.
Catherine Metcalf. I lived on Chestnut Street. Now I live in New Mexico, Cubero, New Mexico.
Marilyn Ethel Dangoya. I lived at 299 South Main Street, Sharon. I live now in Brockton, Mass, in class of 1956.
Hi, Elsie Vesso Goodwin. I lived at 17 Pole Plain Road, Sharon, Mass, and I just moved to Pond Street.
Duncan Oliver. I lived on Summit Avenue, moved back to Sharon 10 years ago. Now I live on Ashcroft Road.
Mary Flynn, lived on Manshill Road, live in Medfield, Massachusetts now.
Hi, my name is Mike Callahan. I graduated in 1956 from Sharon High School. I now live in Denver, Colorado, and what I want to know is, what are all these old people doing around here? Okay.
Ken Webster. I lived on Walpole Street in Sharon, and now I live in Norwood, Mass.
Everybody's been sitting down all night. Come on, let's get a few more out here. I might have to turn it up a little.
We were old church friends from First Baptist Church in Sharon. We were teenagers all together in Christian endeavor at the First Baptist. And it's been wonderful to be reunited. We didn't know anything about this music.
Okay, we're going to request to get here.